I'm not talking about a tax increase. I'm talking about a tremendous tax decrease, okay? And it was misreported by NBC. I said, of the low proposal, yeah, I may have to raise it a little bit because this is a negotiation. I may have to raise it. I'm really going to fight hard for the middle class. I'm not raising it, and I'm not raising it in a business, but I could see the wealthy getting raised. But I'm not talking raised from where they are now. I'm talking about raised from my low proposal.
Donald Trump reaching out to former Reagan economists Steve Moore and Larry Kudlow. So Trump wants to update his tax plan. The main target is to raise the top tax rate while expanding the number of people who would pay taxes under it. The Economist himself, Steve Moore, is with me now. So, Steve, before we get into the numbers, how did Donald Trump approach you about helping him?
Well, we had gotten some word from his campaign that they wanted some improvements in the tax system. And look, it's a great tax system. He's proposing, Deirdre, the biggest tax cuts since Ronald Reagan was in office, and asked us for some advice about how you might tweak this plan, because the big issue out there right now, Deirdre, is, and Hillary Clinton's already saying this, $10 trillion tax cut, we can't afford it. And what Larry and I did was sit down with some of the top numbers crunchers and found that we could actually reduce the cost of that plan from $10 trillion down to closer to $4 trillion over 10 years and still get a big economic punch out of it. And, we presented this to the Trump operation, and hopefully they'll take some of our advice.
So, Steve, brass tacks for people who say, what would I actually pay in taxes if Trump wins the presidency?
Let's get to the bottom line, right?
Come on, yeah. What happened?
Well, first of all, what you heard that clip from Mr. Trump, and that's actually very much in conformance with what we're talking about is, you can broaden the base a little bit so, the rich people lose some of their deductions and loopholes, and then maybe you're not going to cut the top rate to 25%. Maybe you have to cut it to, 27 or 28%, but that's still going to be, Deirdre, according to my math, a lot lower than 42% now and a lot lower than 50%, which is what Hillary wants it at.
Steve, that's a great point. I almost want you to just repeat it because, listen, this is complicated, and here's the other thing. People really do care an awful lot about this. So
they
you're
sure
saying,
do.
okay, so rich people may lose a few of their deductions, but that is, quote unquote, the most pain that they will feel.
Well, basically what will happen, hopefully, again, is, you eliminate some of the deductions. By the way, Ronald Reagan did this in 1986. You get rid of all these stupid loopholes in the tax system, and then you flatten out the rates. You make them lower. That's been kind of a Republican orthodox position for a long time. It's what, a lot of these candidates were for, whether it was Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz or Jeb Bush. You get the rates down. But I want to clarify this again because it's been misreported about 100 times. Donald Trump is not talking about raising anyone's tax rates. He's talking about across-the-board lower rates. All he's saying is that maybe with the math, we might not be able to lower them as much as he had said we would. The other thing is on the business side, businesses, corporations would see a 15% corporate tax under Donald Trump. How many times have we talked about this on your show, Deirdre, that with the highest corporate tax today, we're losing businesses. We're losing.
Yeah, the U.S. is something like 36%. So when a U.S. company wants to move its headquarters overseas, we can't be surprised.
Exactly. So this would cut that highest in the world tax rate down to 15%, which would be one of the lowest. And I think Donald Trump is exactly right. You do that, and those businesses will move back to the United States. They'll move back quickly, and you'll see more jobs and more factories here and more plants. So all in all, I think people are going to, if you're a conservative on a supply side or on a Ronald Reagan guy or woman like I am, you're going to love this plan, I think. You're really going to, and it's going to pay for itself, and with some spending cuts, Deirdre, the other issue is, are we going to blow a big hole in the deficit? Right. And the answer is no. If you do the correct spending cuts and you have some budget discipline, you can do this plan. You can grow the economy. Every time you raise the growth rate by 1 percentage point over a decade, you get $3 trillion more revenue. I mean, JFK taught us this. Reagan taught us this. The best way to balance the budget, get people back to work.
Yeah, and to say nothing of morale, enthusiasm, and feel-good times. Steve Moore, thank you so much. Clarity. We love it. Economist with Heritage.